just can't wait to get
All right, everybody. Jack Siney, your normal host, is on the road again.
I need a country hat and like start doing like a two-step or something.
This is good old Willie Nelson. He is driving back from Texas. So today you have Dre and Steve. Pleasure, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I can't get enough of it.
My love is making music with
Jack, hope your journey is going safe, my friend, and you are making it back to Florida. Or actually, I thought you made it back to Florida. Maybe you're in Pensacola now, and still got another, 8 hours to get home. So welcome, everybody. This is the GovCast. Jack Siney, your normal host, is on the road again, hence the song we're playing. But you have Dre and I to help you learn more about selling to the government. So we're super excited today. We were going to have a guest. We're going to postpone it until Jack is back. But we have been promoting myths. There's 10 myths. We have a big white paper out there on 10 myths about selling to the government. So we figured today we will cover the first 3 and go over an overview and actually break those down. So without further ado, Dre, want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm sure some of you are sad that Jack's not here, and so are we. We should have phoned him in or something so he could chat with us from the car, but hope he's driving safe. But good to see everybody. Almost the weekend.
Yes. I can't believe it. Day's flying by. This weekend, going to my niece's christening. So excited about that. Had the mother-in-law fly in last night, and it was crazy. Fort Lauderdale was like a ghost town. Like,
really?
Not traveling. Yeah. I don't know because of the later flight, but normally when you get in there, there's all the cars and stuff. So looks like everyone's still safe being at home, and that's great to hear.
You go out of town next week, don't you?
Yeah. So next Thursday, I will not be here. I'll be here Tuesday, but Thursday, going to Asheville, North Carolina.
That's awesome. Excited
to see the leaves change. Living down here in Florida, everybody loves it. It's like beaches in paradise, but you kind of miss the seasons once in a while. So gonna go check out the foliage.
Yay, you have to send us pictures.
Yes, definitely will. Share with the whole audience. Everybody, you'll see some cool pictures when I get back. So let's kick it into gear. What's this one? It's not time to take put off the gas. All right, there's Jack driving. As you can see him popping his head out. Love that graphic. Thank you, Team GovCast. But yeah, let's get into the myths. So Team GovCast, you want to bring up the first myth? Perfect. So this is one that we hear every time we talk to someone new. They say, oh, I got to go out through a bid and RFP in order to win a government contract. Is this true, Dre?
False. This is not true. There's a lot of ways, and you know what? And especially when you're talking to newer companies, or maybe just ones that haven't done a ton of research, like a lot of times they say they're like, oh my gosh, maybe I don't really want to work with the government because a lot of what they do is bid work. Right. And so and that's true for a portion of the business, but only about 20% of all opportunities ever go out for bid, which some people think is crazy. And I remember when I started learning about the government years ago, I thought the same thing. But really 80% of those opportunities are left to be spent in about 8 different ways. And so those are the ways that we want to go through today and just explain to you all and give you visibility into different ways that agencies are buying. So you don't have to go through all the red tape of the bids and RFPs.
Yeah, definitely perks, shorter sales cycle because you don't have to go through that long bid and RFP, and also, ways to make higher profit margins. Excited to cover this topic and debunk myth number 1. So, Team GovCast, you want to put it up? We'll kick off and go through all the other ways that the government buys.
Awesome. So I will start with the first one. So a way that they do not have to go out for bid or RFP is if your company is sole source. So what that means is that essentially you're the only company who can provide X product or X service. So a lot of times it might not be anything crazy, right? There's a lot of companies, I'm sure, in one industry who all do something similar. But if you can find just a little something that makes your company totally unique, that's perfect, because then when they're buying it, they can just buy directly from you, not put it out for competitive bid, and just say, hey, we're sole sourcing this. And you automatically get your foot in the door, right? Because you have that something little that's a little bit different, just a lot easier to work with them.
Totally. Yeah. And one tip, GovSpend being a proprietary database and the process we go about it and the data we have, we are a sole source company. And you would create a sole source justification letter. So this is something each company can do. So if you have something unique, just draft it up, have your company logo at the letterhead, and go through and just bullet out to make it really easy for the agency to tell what makes you unique and distinct that no one else has to offer. And that one sheeter, just put that in when you're talking with them, because it will be an asset for you to get that sole source deal.
Definitely.
Cool. So let's go to piggybacking. So this is a funny word. I love it. Piggybacking, for those that do not know what piggybacking is, it really means that you have an established deal or contract with an agency, and that other agencies can also buy off that contract. So probably in the beginning, you will have to go through an initial RFP. And it's very important. And when I heard this, I was like, wow, it blew my mind, because you can include verbiage on your response, and as long as the agency is in agreement that they will be like the host agency to have that contract in place, then they can go off and buy your products and services. Typically, whatever price you sell that agency is a good benchmark when you're working with the other government agencies, but this can avoid the bid and RFP process, because they won't have to go out through a solicitation, say, hey, I already have a contract. There's verbiage on that contract that says other agencies are allowed to purchase whatever products and services you sell. And then they can, use that term piggybacking and just use that contract instead of going out through this open solicitation.
Yeah, and we actually, we'll probably get to it next week, but we actually have a whole portion within our platform, GovSpend, that tracks these contracts also. Mm-hmm. So if you are looking for a couple easy wins, you can go in there, see any existing contract, and then try to piggyback off that. So it's not only a benefit for the customer, so for the vendors selling, but for the agencies, it saves them all the process of having to put it out for bid again. It's really a win-win.
Cool.
So number 3 is going to be...
Drum roll, please.
So discretionary spend. I love this. So every agency has a spending threshold where if it's over a certain dollar amount, they do have to go out for bid or RFP. Mm-hmm. But if it's under that, under a certain amount, it does not have to go out for bid and RFP. So that's what they call using those the discretionary spend or discretionary funds. Every agency is different in terms of what that dollar amount is. But even some agencies, if that discretionary spend level, let's say, is only 10 grand, right, where everything over that had to go out for bid or RFP, what I have seen a lot of times is agencies are breaking up the transactions. So let's say they're buying something for 50 grand and their limit is 10, they'll simply, they will split up that purchase into a couple different orders to make it look like it's under that amount. So it's helpful, right? You just kind of want to pitch it to them in the right way, but it allows for them to not have to go out through that process if it's under that dollar amount.
Yeah, it's kind of like zip your lips on that one as well. Kind of like a hidden secret, but it does happen. And sometimes there's discretionary spends by month, right? So it has to be broken up over a certain time frame. You can say, hey, I'm going to complete the work over 3 quarters, pay October, November, December. But it does happen, right? Everybody's trying to make it easier. The agencies need what they want because listen, they don't want to go through these long 6, 12 months. So anyway, you can make it work, but you have to have that relationship and comfortability to, again, talk with that purchasing agent to, find out those details. But it does vary state by state. So just feel comfortable talking about it next time you're dealing with an agency.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Number 4.
That's number 4. All right. Co-ops. So this is huge, right? So a lot of agencies will prefer co-op, especially on the state and local level. So what is a co-op? So it's a cooperative agreement. And really what this means is that there's established contracts outside the agency. I'm sure everybody's heard of state contracts, which is established by the state, and it's proprietary to things that they buy all the time, right? Not those off the wall purchases, but every agency is going to need electronics. Every agency is going to need paper, like office supplies. Every agency is going to need, tires for the vehicles in the police department. So once they know that all these items, they use the power of buying in bulk and create a state contract. Now, similarly, there's these organizations out there. Some are groups of agencies across the United States. Some are nonprofit organizations. Some are quasi, kind of this gray area where they're a cooperative, but they're really doing the same thing as a state contract. So what they do is they go out there and they just find all these vendors to provide all the most common purchase services and products, and then they put them on the contract. And what you'll do is typically give a discount, 10% below list price. But once you're on that contract, then it's easy for that agency. And Dre was mentioning, discretionary thresholds. So when they go above those discretionary thresholds, they have to go out through bid. But they can also buy off a co-op or a state contract. So that's a little loophole, for the audience here, is that you can get on a cooperative. And there's hundreds of co-ops out there. Omnia Partners is a really big one. If you're selling to schools K through 12, E&I is a big cooperative. And then there's also small, like regional cooperatives. HGAC stands for Houston Galveston Area Council. It's based in Texas, and they have a cooperative agreement. So if you have any questions, we can talk, because there's a bunch out there, but you can also research those online as well.
And just one thing to add before we move to number 5. So all of this information, like, you want to get really close with your agencies, like whoever your point of contact is, and find out how they buy, because there are some agencies that typically buy off these state contracts. There's other ones that may not, right? But if you are trying to work with an agency who is telling you, hey, we only buy off the state contract, then you likely want to try to get on that contract. But really, you just have to figure out how these agencies are buying, because they all buy a little bit differently and prefer different methods.
Yeah, and they prefer to avoid the bid and RFP. So that is really why 80% goes there, because they don't like writing up, 50-page RFP, and then they have to go through all the responses. So getting on a contract is definitely a great way to go.
Yes. So number 5 for our myths is going to be P card. So also stands for purchasing card, or as we know it, credit card. So this ties similarly to the discretionary spend, where, again, if it's underneath that spending threshold, an agency can just swipe their P card. So if you have something, let's say, that falls underneath that threshold, they can literally just swipe their credit card with you, just like an Amex or Visa, and they don't have to put it out for bid and RFP. So again, it's just a lot easier to work with them if you have something that's under that amount. So it's not super competitive. They don't have to go through all that red tape.
Yeah, and just find that limit, right? Because just like Dre said, discretionary limit, P card limit, everyone has, jurisdiction as far as like the agency will set in parameters. And they typically want to increase those limits because it helps people be more efficient in procurement, because they don't have to go through that long process. So it comes down to, hey, maybe it's a $500 limit at one agency. The next one could be $5,000. So it definitely ranges. You just have to be comfortable. Yeah, definitely having those conversations.
For sure.
Cool. So next, are we on simplified quotes? Yeah. All right. So we actually have a system that helps with this process called GovQuote. But for simplified quotes, the really easy way to think about it is, before technology and, the internet, what they would have to do is pick up the phone and call 3 vendors. So the agency would go through the Rolodex and they say, hey, Bob, hey, Susan, hey, Jimmy, looking for this, need you to give me a quote. And now there's services out there that can make this simpler, but it's below that bid and RFP threshold. To be in compliance by law, they might have to go out there and get 3 quotes, 5 quotes. Some agencies, it's 10 quotes, but it's just another way for them to buy without a bid and RFP. So typically those are the ones that are awarded in, a couple weeks, sometimes even a couple days. Once they get their 3 quotes, then they can evaluate them and choose the vendor that's best for them.
For sure. And I think what you said just about, you were mentioning like GovQuote at the beginning is huge, because sometimes when they put out quotes, I'll see they say, hey, we're going to cap it at 10 people. Once 10 respond, we're done. But then there's some that say, hey, we want people to respond today and award it by tonight. So we're just taking the top 3 or 5. So just be on the lookout. I mean, it's a free service if you want to sign up for it, but it's really an easy way to get a couple free wins.
Yep, totally.
So number 7, so set-asides and socioeconomic designations. That is a mouthful. So the government has to spend, we've gone over this, I feel like, not ad nauseum, right? But we've talked about this so much a couple months ago in terms of the different types of set-asides. And in order to level the playing field, the government has to put aside a certain percentage of all their spending to specific set-asides. So there's 8A, there's small business, veteran-owned, minority-owned, women-owned. And so it ranges from 3 to 5% that the government has to spend with each type of set aside. So I would say do some research. If you qualify for any of the set asides, that's awesome. It's definitely like a nice check mark or an asterisk that you can put when you're talking to these agencies. And I think we've gone over this too, but if you qualify even for more than one, that's even better because they have to spend this money that way. So if you can have them buying from you in that fashion, it's just a lot easier.
Yeah, and one that's really popular with local government agencies is Hub Zone. So historically underutilized businesses, they look by regions demographically. So you can go online and just type in, your street address or your business location and see if you fall into one of those Hub Zones.
For sure.
So I think the last one here is GSA. This is the big gorilla. Everyone thinks, I have to be on a GSA contract to win business. Well, the federal agencies do like GSA contracts because it's easier for them to buy. They don't have to go out through that bid and RFP. State and local, I would say, prefer more the cooperative agreement or state contracts, but if you can also go through GSA. So it is definitely a good contract to hold, but it's like being in a shelf at a grocery store. You still have to market and promote your business. Just getting on the GSA contract makes it easy for them to buy because you're already established, you've already been vetted, and then you put your price on there, but you still have to let the purchasing agents know that you exist. Because if you go down the grocery aisle and you're looking at all the cereals, you see Lucky Charms, Frosted Flakes, Cocoa Puffs, and you're like, which one do I get, right? Well, I'm sure your kids are looking at the commercials like, I want to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, so they're buying that. I don't even know that's a cereal anymore, but I hope it is. But it goes into because you're just getting on the shelf, right? So it makes it easy for agencies to buy, but you still have to put in the work of sales and marketing what you have to offer.
Yeah. And just one thing I want to add, of course, because of everything going on with COVID, the government also has a state of emergency.
Oh, yeah.
So with that, they don't have to go through all this red tape. Like if they need to buy the 100,000 masks, they don't have to put it out for bid and RFP. They need them immediately. So just know when this, unfortunately, everything going on, but it really is a good time to work with some of these agencies because they have the ability to buy quickly. And again, it's a lot less competitive. You're not going to have to do all this formal red tape stuff. They can just buy directly from you fast.
Great. So let's do a quick recap. If Team GovCast want to bring up the list again. So the 80% of government spending outside the bid and RFP, you have sole source, piggybacking, discretionary spend, co-ops, P-cards, simplified quotes, set-asides, and GSA and state schedules. So without further ado, let's go on to myth number 2, Dre, if you want to take it away.
Yes. So myth number 2, the government is looking for the cheapest or lowest cost solution.
False.
That is not true. And again, I hear that all the time too. I talk to companies, and when I'm trying to learn a little bit about them, sometimes they say, you know what, we tried this government work. Like a lot of our competitors are just so much cheaper. Like we don't even stand a chance. I'm like, what are you talking about? But the price is just such a small portion. And so just one thing to consider, the agencies they're not looking for the cheapest solution. They're looking for the best value. Because in reality, if a government agency was to buy the cheapest thing, if there's, let's say, 10 people respond to the bid, they pick the cheapest one, the likelihood of them having to upkeep with the maintenance or even have to replace that product in a shorter amount of time is very likely. So they really do want to find something that's going to provide the most value, not necessarily just the cheapest option.
Yeah, best value. I know Jack talked about an example. He said, think about speakerphones for like the conference rooms,
right?
All in there, right? And then all of a sudden, the noise stinks and the buttons are not working right. It's like, well, you just have to go out and procure it again. So, the amount of money and time and energy, spent to buy, the cheapest one, then you have to do it all again. It's better just to buy, maybe medium price or high price if it has like a 10-year warranty on it. So the agencies are very risk adverse. And that's one of the things they look at as, better value because they don't want to have to keep buying things. They want to move on and just have everything, set up and be how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And remember too, it's not their money. So it's not like we're talking to a private company where they're having to watch the purse strings because it's their money at the end of the day. It's the taxpayers' dollars. They want to do right by the economy. And so they're not just going to look to get the cheapest thing. Plus, that's going to get them in a ton of trouble when something breaks.
Yeah, totally. Yep, 100%.
And then our last myth. Oh, so for also just side note, so some government procurements can indeed be highly competitive, resulting in lower margins, profitability, but this is certainly not true of all nor majority.
Yeah, that takes us right into myth number 3. So I would say, many companies are winning off of attractive profit margins because they wouldn't be in business if they couldn't make a profit. Yeah, does that make sense? And I love it. I love that graphic. Yeah, but it talks about, the RFP drives down the price. So you have to figure out, what to do as far as structuring your business. So, there's 3 examples I want to give. So one is offering a unique product or service to justify the higher cost. So Dre, you mentioned, sole source, but a local company could also offer, a same day service or a delivery of a product, which would get rid of all the outside competition. So if you're locally in an area, you can include that as part of your proposal and charge a higher fee because, again, like they want to be risk adverse. So they know they have someone that's close by, driving distance, there to help. That's something they're willing to pay more for because they know they can count on you and your service. The other thing is, focusing on long-term relationships. Sometimes you do go in a cheaper price, right? Just to get your foot in the door because you want to develop that relationship. But then there's these things called like change orders and add-ons. That's where you really start to grow because I would say the hardest part is just getting them to know about you, then getting them to buy from you. But once you're in, you could grow in different departments or even grow with other offerings within the same department. And that's where you can make up your profit, right? So sometimes you could go in just to win the deal. You don't have to go for that big markup and then make it up on the back end once you get in there over the years, because once you get in with the government, they could be a customer for life. And that's one of the great things about working with agencies.
And two, just something that you mentioned was about relationships. And so it's super, super true. I mean, if you're responding just to a bid and RFP and hoping that you win a lot of the business, I pray for you. I hope you win a lot of business, but the likelihood is probably not that high. So really, you do want to spend that time and invest in the relationships, because as you continue to grow your relationships within the agencies, it can lead to a lot of opportunities. I mean, agencies are really, really big on referrals. And so if they love you, then there's a chance that they maybe refer you into the neighboring city or the school. So definitely focus on that.
Yeah, focus on the non-bid and RFPs, right? Like that is really the goal. Like, and if you do get in, help structure that bid and RFP to your advantage. It's such a great point, Trey. And I think people that understand that game, they make the system work for them and work with the agency. And that's really what it's about. It's bringing both parties together, because you have agencies, the regular humans, they're just trying to get their job done at the end of the day. They need to buy stuff. You're a company, you need to sell stuff, right? So working together, forming that bond. There's all these different ways that they buy. So hopefully that you enjoyed these top 3 myths, but there is a link if you want to download the full report, and we can even cover some more throughout other episodes. I think it's like go.govsalesuniversity.com/myths. If the team wants to bring up the exact URL, normally it's scrolling down here somewhere. You can go to that one as well. Actually, we'll put it in the comments. So it'll just be a quick link, and then you can download the 10 report. But we're putting that all over our social media.
Awesome.
Just do a quick recap of the 3 myths. So myth 1 is not everything goes out through bid and RFP. They buy another 80%. Myth 2, Dre?
That the government is always looking for the cheapest solution.
Yeah, so best value, right? And then myth 3 is, there's no money to be made. The profit margins are slim, which totally is not true. You just have to figure out, your strategy to earn the profits and your thing. And avoiding the bid and RFP is definitely one way to do that, because those are highly competitive. Everybody in the market knows about it. So those relationships are important to have that longevity and keep growing your business.
Definitely. So if you learned anything, do not just respond to bids and RFPs. There's a lot more ways they can buy.
True.
Love it.
I love it.
Today, by the way.
What's that?
Where's Mia?
Oh, Mia. So Kristen's home today. So Mia found some other company right there. Have my door locked. So as far as things on the roadmap for later this month, I know we have a new special guest coming on next Tuesday. Let me find the name here, James Baldwin. So he is helping you crack the code for outbound sales. So selling to the government, you have to learn sales first, and we teach you everything you need to know about selling to the government in GovSales University. But applying sales strategies to the government is also important. So excited to have James on our cast. And also later this month, we're going to be doing our webinar. So that's going to be October 12th. Yeah. Are you going to be there again, Dre?
I don't know. I haven't been asked. I kind of assumed, but I wasn't sure.
Will you please join us October 28th at 12 noon to be the DJ?
I'll look at my calendar. I'll let you know.
Oh, man. It sounds like every girl I ask on a date. I'll get back to you. Let me see. Got to wash my hair that day. No, that's great. So anybody that can join us October 28th at 12 noon, we will be dropping some knowledge. Jack Siney will be there, and we'll be going through all the topics. So we'll also get you the URL in the comments of this to join us. But any questions, please let us know. We are here to help. We want to make selling to the government as easy as possible. Don't believe the myths. There's a lot of garbage out there, and it's just to distract you. The government's a huge market, $7 trillion a year. And if you're looking to get started, great place to go is govsalesuniversity.com. And we'll teach you the ropes, everything you need to know from A to Z to help you win your first government sale.
Yay. So call us if you need anything.
It's cool. Any last things, Dre?
No, I think that was good. I think we should definitely plan to pick up the rest of the myths. Just keep going through them. I think they're fun, but hopefully you all learned a little bit today.
Cool. There's a URL. So check out the comments. And in honor of Jack, who's on the road, let's end on his tribute. Again. See you soon, Jack. Drive safe, my friend. Thanks for everybody tuning in.
I've never been.